It's no secret that recent years have not been kind to Disney. Starting off, you can look at their box office results where basically every movie that they released in 2023, or at least every major release that they had, was a flop for the studio that lost the money, except for maybe Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And even then, they spent so much money on that movie, it basically just made its money back. It really wouldn't even be considered a success for the studio. And then you look at other endeavors like their lawsuit against Florida government, and all this stemmed from the fact that Disney jumped into politics when they had no business actually jumping into politics. And it caused the Florida government to closely examine basically Disney and what they were actually doing, and coming to find out, hey, you're not allowed to basically operate your own government completely void of the actual government of the state that you're in. Disney tried to sue for this and rightfully got it tossed out of the court because, yeah, you're not allowed to do that. Companies can't have autonomy like that, and Disney isn't special when compared to other theme parks in the state of Florida. And also, speaking of theme parks in Florida, Disney still maintains its position as the #1 most visited park, and that's Magic Kingdom in Orlando, Florida. But it's looking like they may have some trouble on the horizon because Universal just recently kind of unveiled a little bit more about what they plan on doing with the Epic Universe. And a lot of people are calling this a Disney killer. Epic Universe is going to be several different lands for popular franchises that a lot of people would actually be interested in visiting. When you compare that to what Disney has planned in the next 10 years, it's essentially just reskinning some of the stuff that they already have. So even though Disney's Magic Kingdom in Orlando is currently the most visited theme park in the world, a lot of people speculate that once Universal opens up Epic Universe next year, they may actually take the #1 spot from them. All this without even mentioning their streaming platforms, which has basically just been a money drain for the studio. So far, they've invested billions of dollars into this and have yet to turn a profit on it. In fact, they've been losing money each quarter on this since they released it back in 2020. And even then, the most optimistic estimates that they have for this is that by the end of this year, it'll stop losing money for them. So congratulations. In maybe about 10, 20 years or so, you could have finally actually made up for all the losses that you've actually invested into this platform. And this is all assuming that they can actually withstand the losses long enough in order for this to turn a profit for them. And if you look at everything else I've said in this video up to this point, it's looking less and less like that's the case. That's why there's this internal power struggle going on within the Disney board, where people who are trying to actually turn a profit for the company are trying to wrestle control away from the people who basically drove the company into the ground. Right now, I have this article pulled up from Pirates and Princesses. It's talking about how there's been conflicting letters that are being sent out to the shareholders instructing them on how to vote in different ways. On February 1st, 2024, Disney sent a letter to shareholders urging them to keep the status quo and vote with the white card. I would think any investor who was interested in making actual money with Disney would not be wanting the status quo, because what the status quo is has been a colossal failure for Disney. In response, Trian Group, which controls around $3 billion in common share stock of Disney and is led by investor Nelson Peltz, sent out another letter to shareholders basically urging them to get rid of some of the board members because they were feeling like they're actually ruining the company. Despite Disney's enviable and unique position in media and entertainment, its stock price is half what it was less than 3 years ago, and Disney shareholders like you and us have collectively lost nearly $200 billion of our investment. That by itself is pretty bad, but I think it actually gets worse when you continue on with this letter. 1 year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, you would have been far better served investing in an index fund like the S&P 500 or in a basket of Disney's self-selected peers than in Disney itself. This letter goes on to list some of the reasons why they think the company has been failing so badly over the last several years. I'm not going to read all of them for the purpose of time of this video, but if you want to check it out yourself, I'll leave a link to the article in the description of this video where you can actually read the full letter. But some of the things I found kind of interesting about this was the section where they say lack of alignment as a reason why Disney's 11 non-management directors appear to have so little faith in Disney's future that they have purchased a total of less than $350,000 of Disney stock during their tenures. 9 of them have never bought a single share. I don't think you have to be very stock literate to understand that it's not a good look when the people who are responsible for improving the value of Disney are not willing to invest in Disney despite actually having extensive portfolios and other investments. The final thing that they actually list, though, is the whole lack of accountability, in that the people who are responsible for driving the company into the ground like this are still receiving their bonuses. They still get discounts on shares that they just don't want to actually purchase themselves. And they're still having their job, despite the fact that any other situation, that whole board would have actually been fired and replaced by now by the shareholders. And that's why they're actually writing this letter, to try to get the shareholders to basically vote out some board members and actually bring in people who want to turn a profit for the company. The two board members that this is talking about getting rid of are Michael B.G. Froman, who, according to this article, the only qualifications that he has to sit on the board is that his wife is the personal friend of Bob Iger's wife, the CEO of Disney. So really he has no reason to be there. And also he has no faith in the company because he's never actually bought in Disney stock with his own money. And then there's Maria Elena Lagomarsino, and she's Disney's compensation committee chair since 2019. And during that time frame, she's overseen payments of over $800 million to Disney executives. And right here, while shareholders have suffered with Disney stock losing nearly 20% of its value, and dividends have either been cut entirely or significantly reduced. Then she also saw the compensation package to CEO Bob Iger valued at more than $250 million in connection with the high value, destructive, but board endorsed and unanimously approved 21st Century Fox acquisition. So he bought Fox. They still haven't actually paid off the debt for that. And he got a big bonus as a result of that. So that's why they want to get rid of these two board members. And they want to replace them with, Nelson Peltz himself wants to be one of the board members, which isn't really a shocker because he's been kind of gunning for that seat for a while, because unlike a lot of board members who are just using this as kind of a slush fund, or at least that's what it appears they've been doing, Nelson Peltz actually is an investor who wants to turn the company around. Unfortunately for him, his personal beliefs get in the way with the personal beliefs of the people over at Disney and on the board of Disney. Nelson Peltz basically wants to have a coup against Bob Iger. He wants to get onto the board so then he can maybe start bringing in some more people aligned with him. And over time, they could basically take over the whole thing and get rid of some of the people like Bob Iger. And at that point, they probably could turn the company around. It's just a matter of whether that'll actually happen, because Bob Iger and his allies on the board understand that's what the ultimate goal is, and they'll do anything that they can to actually try to stop that from happening. And that's why Nelson Peltz basically has to go around them and go directly to the shareholders and try to appease them. And frankly, he actually has a pretty good argument. The reason I demonstrated at the start of this video how Disney's been failing at everything was basically to illustrate a point that if you want something to change, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And in this situation, the same thing over and over again would be bringing in the same board members. So if you actually want Disney to kind of turn this ship around, you actually do have to bring in different board members in order to try to correct course. The only question is whether they'll actually do that. And even if they did, is the damage so severe that it can't be repaired? I kind of hold out hope that Disney can actually be restored to the Universal brand that everyone loved. The only question is whether they'll actually do that in time or not.